Help is on its way. U.S. President Donald Trump is calling on Iranians to keep protesting and to take over state institutions as the death toll at mass demonstrations against the Islamic Republic continues to rise. Trump has yet to indicate what form the help will take or how long it may take to arrive. But this afternoon, U.S. bases in Qatar were partially evacuated. Meanwhile, the Islamic Republic continues to pretend the uprising is over, even whilst the country has been cut off from the internet for over 5 days. As it attempts to project strength, 5 major Iranian banks, including Bank Sepa, are on the verge of total collapse. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has been following the latest developments.
U.S. President Donald Trump said he's canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the deadly crackdown ends, but did not specify what form the help he promised might take or when it might be delivered, leaving America's next steps unclear. Trump has also warned that those responsible for killing protesters will pay a big price, even as he says American pressure, including potential military, cyber, or economic action, is still under active consideration.
Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So, and we'll act accordingly.
Do you think it's going to be something kinetic like that, or more like cyber? Or
well, I can't tell you that. I know exactly what it would be. We have to make a decision. But I can't be. Obviously, I can't be telling you.
Insiders say Trump is less enthusiastic than before last year's strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Some call the new strike a coin flip. Concerns include operational failure, escalation, or Iran collapsing into chaos, or a more militant regime. The National Security Council is reviewing options including economic pressure, cyber attacks, or targeted action, without recommending a course. Iranian authorities report about 2,000 people killed in the unrest, a figure they offered publicly in an unusual acknowledgement. But U.S. and foreign sources say the real toll is higher. The U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, relied on by Israel and other governments, say at least 2,571 people have been killed, including protesters, security forces, children, and civilians, and more than 18,000 have been detained across the country. Estimates vary widely, with opposition-aligned media claiming up to 12,000 casualties or even higher figures as communication gaps slow confirmation. Meanwhile, Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah, said opposition forces are ready to step in if the clerical regime collapses, and he urged U.S. lawmakers to back measures that empower Iranians. Axios reported that White House envoy Steve Witkoff met with Pahlavi over the weekend to discuss the protests in Iran. Pahlavi called for support from free nations that stand on the right side of history.
Arab states are reportedly pressuring the U.S. to hold off on any military strike against Iran, and some have reported that Israeli officials also requested a delay, believing that the Iranian regime is not yet weak enough for such action to result in regime change. Reports from NBC News cite sources, including U.S. officials, indicating a strong preference to wait until the regime is more vulnerable. In recent talks, Israeli officials have expressed support for American efforts to instigate regime change, but raised concerns that military action alone might not be sufficient. They recommended alternative strategies to undermine the Islamic Republic regime, such as supporting protesters, boosting economic sanctions, engaging in cyber attacks, and targeted strikes against key leaders. Arab officials have also reportedly shown reservations about an imminent U.S. strike, with some repeating the regime's arguments that such actions could unify Iranians with the regime. However, political interests related to oil are far more likely the key determinant of the Arab states' position on U.S. intervention in the Iranian uprisings. Well, joining us now to discuss the current situation in Iran is the advocacy director at NUFTI, the National Union for Democracy in Iran, and a former political prisoner himself in Iran, Navid Mohabi. Navid, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start by asking you, what is the current status of the protests as it stands today?
Thank you for having me on. For 16 days, brave Iranian men and women took to the street challenging the regime. But we saw what happened. Just 2 days ago, we realized that the Islamic Republic regime massacred more than 12,000 Iranians in the street. And so the regime was able to at least put a pause on the ongoing protests. But I think that this is not going to be the end of a story. Revolution is a marathon, is not a 2 weeks event. So we are going to see another form of resistance from the Iranian people, whether in the street or through other civil disobedience in the country. I think that no nation is the same to be slaughtered, tortured, or massacred. And I think it's time for the international community to intervene and change the balance in favor of the Iranian people. And I hope that President Trump moves quickly and strike the leaders inside the regime. What we need, I think, is a larger scale air campaign against the regime. I've always said this, the most effective way to deal with this regime is to decapitate the leadership. I think there are roughly 50 or 60 decision makers at the top. And I think that once they are targeted, the mid-levels official, they're going to lose their will to fight, and they're not going to resist. I think at this moment, Israel, after all the promises that they have made, I think they also must come to the aid of Iranian people. I think Israel needs to step up in a much bigger way. Expectation inside Iran are extremely high.
Naveed, you brought up something interesting. I do want to ask you, because we're hearing right now a lot of Western pundits speaking really over Iranians in the past few weeks and claiming that the people are against foreign intervention. But we hear voices on the ground saying otherwise. I'd love to settle this debate. Do Iranians want help, military help from the U.S. and/or Israel, or not?
Absolutely. You know what? Internet was shut down, but there were a very small number of people that were able to reach out to the outside world through Starlink. And we have seen so many messages and voice messages from inside the country, people begging for international help. They understand that in order to bring down the regime, international community support is absolutely necessary, because this regime is armed to the teeth and is willing to kill to the last person. Every day I'm checking the Iranian regime's outlets. They are vowing for more crackdown. They are arresting more people. So dark days are ahead of Iranian people if we don't see international community's intervention in Iran. As I mentioned earlier in my at the start of the interview, no nation is the same to be slaughtered, tortured, or massacred. Iranians have shown their resolve that they don't want this regime, but for whatever reason, this regime is ruthless and they overpower them. So we need to change the balance of power in favor of the Iranians. And the only way that we can deal with this regime, and the only thing that this regime understands, is the American might. We all remember during the first round of Iran-Israel war, we have seen so many dead bodies of regime officials piled up. And so the regime understands that when they understand that Israel or United States, they're not defenseless Iranian people that can be easily slaughtered. So the situation is going to be much different. So absolutely, you will see Iranian regime apologies outside the country opposing foreign intervention. You know what? I think this is the moment, it's a moral test for the international community. I think for generations to come, they're going to ask them, what have you done when Iranian people were being massacred? What have you done when Iranian people asked your help? Let's not forget, I remember watching interviews of President Bill Clinton. He was asked, what is your biggest regret during your time of presidency? He said, I should have intervened in Rwanda genocide. Why? Because I was the only one who could prevent it, and I could save more than 300,000 lives. So the international community's intervention is absolutely necessary. I think we should ignore some of these so-called pundits in Washington, D.C., who are regime apologists, and listen to the voice of Iranian people inside the country.
All right, we have to leave it at that. But I want to thank you, Naveed Mohabi, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Imagine earning your master's degree on top of Mount Carmel, where forest meets sea and where every day brings a new cultural, academic, and personal adventure. This is the multi-experience at U Haifa International. Here, students from around the world live and learn together in Israel's most culturally diverse city, meeting new people, discovering new perspectives, and shaping their own Israel experience.
There's people from different countries, from different religions and different languages. Somehow we are all very similar.
At U Haifa, academics meet real life. You don't just study, you experience Israel up close, explore Haifa's mountain ocean city life, and build global friendships that last a lifetime.
It's not just a degree, it's an experience. It opens your mind, your network, and your world.
U Haifa International. Master your mind, live your Israel experience.
U.S. President Donald Trump is today expected to announce the second phase of his plan to end the war in Gaza, even as fighting continues on the ground and key issues, including the return of the final hostage Ran Gvili and Hamas disarmament, remain unresolved. ILTV's Devo Klein has the latest.
According to reports in Washington, the plan, due to be announced today, includes the creation of a new international body, the Peace Council for Gaza, tasked with overseeing developments in the Strip. The council is expected to be headed by former UN Middle East envoy Nikolai Mladenov. The reports also say a Palestinian technocratic government would be established to administer Gaza and replace Hamas rule. The Trump administration is also expected to announce the appointment of 15 Palestinian technocrats to temporarily run Gaza under a body to be known as the International Committee for the Administration of Gaza. The committee would handle day-to-day civil affairs, while Mladenov is expected to oversee implementations as part of the U.S.-led Peace Council for Gaza. Details on a proposed international stabilization force have not yet been decided. The announcement is expected despite Hamas still holding the body of Israeli hostage Ran Gvili, and without any public commitment from Hamas to disarm. Just last week, Prime Minister Netanyahu said an understanding had been reached with President Trump that the Rafah border crossing would remain closed until the hostage is returned. Hamas says its delegation has arrived in Cairo for talks on the second phase of the ceasefire. The delegation is led by senior Hamas official Khalil al-Haya and is meeting with Egyptian mediators. According to Hamas, the talks will address the opening of the Rafah crossing, the formation of an independent Palestinian technocratic commission, and the withdrawal of Israeli forces. Meanwhile, it's day 831 of the war in Gaza. The IDF says Israeli troops clashed with armed terrorists in southern Gaza in an incident the military describes as a violation of the ceasefire. According to the IDF, field observers identified 6 armed terrorists in western Rafah, near Israeli forces operating in the area. Tanks were dispatched and opened fire. The terrorists then shot at one of the tanks, triggering an exchange of fire. There were also targeted airstrikes, killing the gunmen. The military says troops are continuing to search the area for the remaining gunmen, and that forces remain on high alert across southern Gaza, even as diplomatic efforts to move to Phase 2 continue.
Jerusalem has taken a major step amid growing frustration over what it calls systemic and long-standing anti-Israel bias. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar announced that Israel is severing ties with 7 UN agencies effective immediately, saying they have failed to act professionally, have singled out Israel, or have become platforms for political attacks. The agencies include the UN Office for Children in Armed Conflict, UN Women, the UN Conference on Trade and Development, the UN Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, the UN Alliance of Civilizations, UN Energy, and the Global Forum on Migration and Development. The Foreign Ministry says the decision follows a series of moves at the UN since the October 7th attacks, which Israel says have demonstrated a pattern of double standards and moral failure. Israel ended cooperation with the UN Office for Children and Armed Conflict after it placed the IDF on a blacklist alongside terror organizations including Hamas, ISIS, and Boko Haram. Jerusalem also withdrew from UN Women, accusing the agency of deliberately ignoring sexual violence committed against Israeli women during the October 7th massacre. Officials say other agencies produced what they called virulent anti-Israel reports, promoted political agendas under the guise of human rights, or reflected an inefficient and bloated UN bureaucracy. The Foreign Ministry says the move is part of a broader review of Israel's relationship with the United Nations, as Jerusalem signals it will no longer cooperate with bodies it believes undermine Israel's security or legitimacy. Israel and Germany have signed a historic security partnership, marking a major step in joint defense against shared threats, with Israel's leadership in defense, cybersecurity, and advanced technology now formally recognized on the global stage. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu linked Iran's growing threat to regional and international stability to the new Defense and Cybersecurity Pact signed in Jerusalem with German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt. Netanyahu said Iran and its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, pose a direct danger not only to Israel, but to the entire region and beyond. The agreement establishes deep cooperation in cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and advanced technologies, and signals a clear commitment to joint security action. Minister Dobrindt called the pact a new strategic level of partnership rooted in Germany's historic responsibility and its commitment to Israel's security. Netanyahu highlighted existing defense cooperation, including the delivery of Israel's Arrow 3 missile defense system to Germany last December, capable of intercepting long-range ballistic missiles. The prime minister said the agreement underscores Israel's strengthening ties with major powers, adding that Israel is, quote, on an upward trend in security and international cooperation, despite pressure from parts of Europe.
I attach enormous importance to the cooperation, overall cooperation between Israel and Germany, and especially Israel and Germany on this question of cybersecurity, which is one of the main threats to our internal security and in many ways also our infrastructure and other threats.
An Israeli-Argentinian man imprisoned in Venezuela for more than a year has been released and has returned home to Israel following an intensive multi-country diplomatic effort led by Israel and its allies. The Prime Minister's office confirmed that Yaakov Harari, 72, landed in Israel yesterday after being held by the Venezuelan regime since January 2025. Harari had traveled to South America in the spring of 2024 for business purposes, including to Venezuela, when he was detained. He was convicted in absentia and sentenced to 25 years in prison on allegations of terrorism and sabotage, charges for which Caracas provided no public evidence. He was arrested as part of a broad sweep in which Venezuela detained around 125 people, mostly U.S. citizens, accusing them of participating in an alleged U.S.-backed coup plot. Claims denied and apparently politically motivated. Harari was handed over to the community rabbi in Caracas, transferred to a third country not publicly identified, and from there flown to Israel. Upon his return, Harari told Israeli officials he witnessed what he described as severe and harsh conditions inside the Venezuelan prison system. Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke with Harari and his two daughters, thanking Israeli security and diplomatic teams, as well as the United States, Germany, Austria, and other partner governments for their assistance. Well, Jewish National Fund USA's Faculty Fellowship Program in Israel recently wrapped up, the program bringing non-Jewish American college and university professors to Israel for an immersive, eye-opening experience. Today, we're speaking with two distinguished participants, Paul Yankee and Kathy Elias, to share how this trip helped shape their perspectives and strengthen their narratives. Paul and Kathy, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, how have your preconceived notions of Israel been challenged? Paul, let's start with you.
Thank you. I have been very excited about being in Israel and experiencing Israel. I came very curious. And the preconceived elements that I might have had was that there was very much a living under pressure, but what I also saw was a stronger resilience and a stronger resolve than I had expected. And with that, great insight, great ability, and also a very caring heart in many different ways. So I didn't come with necessarily super strong preconceptions one way or the other. I had a great respect already for Israel coming from my days working in technology and the intelligence that they bring into that space. And so I was really wanting to understand more how this all works, how these countries that are having such disparate views on things able to coincide together.
And Kathy, can you share from your perspective your experience as well?
Well, I want to point out that I'm coming this time on the faculty fellowship as an ambassador. So I've been here before, and so this is the second time around. And so I'm looking at very different things. The first time around, a lot of what Paul said, looking at all the innovation, looking at all the really wonderful things that have gone on in terms of research and all in Israel. But this time I've come and I've tried to focus more on the people. And coming from a university that had a lot of problems and a lot of negative actions on campus, I tried to talk to a lot of students also when I was here. And one of the things, I want to bring back that I think is extremely important to our students is just how much many of the students here, of course, are very similar in what they like about government, what they don't like about government, their criticisms, but also their desire to live the same kind of good life and their willingness to really want to engage with students in the United States and be heard.
Paul, what will you be taking back with you to campus from what you've learned or experienced here on the program?
I'll first off say we've had a very full 12 days of visiting a lot of different universities, a lot of different organizations, businesses, museums. And I will tell you, my mind is still very much processing. I'm looking forward to bringing all this together, letting it gel. But one thing that I have seen is I think there's a great need in my university setting and in my element of the areas of influence I have to consider more the consequences of things. And that's something that I've definitely seen be very paramount in Israel is consequences are real and deep for everything that comes up. And I think there can be this context of not considering always the consequences, how it plays out to all the related constituents to different elements that come up. So that's one piece that I want to bring out. I also want to bring more of a perspective of what's really happening, what's really going on. I think when you're able to experience different cultures, different areas, the best way, without any question, to do it is to actually be there. And JNF affords that possibility for people, particularly for academics in this situation.
All right, Kathy, Elias, and Paul Yankee, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today and sharing with us your insights and experiences.
Thank you very much for having us.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 9 degrees Celsius or 52 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see cloudy skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of 17 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and keep up with us on social media. That's ILTV_Israel on all platforms. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.